What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, this is 4K Motoring, and we have just returned from our 3,000 mile road trip on our 2022 Ducati Multistrada V4S from Raleigh, North Carolina to Austin, Texas for the MotoGP race at Circuit of the Americas. Was overall a fantastic trip. This bike is truly amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about it. So first I want to tell you a little bit about the route that we took. We left Raleigh, North Carolina the Wednesday prior to the MotoGP race, sometime in the afternoon, and rode out to around Cherokee, North Carolina, so we were within striking distance of the tail of the dragon in the morning. We went ahead the next morning, woke up, and had about a 45-minute ride out to the tail of the dragon, and assumed it wouldn't be too busy. It was a weekday, it was a morning, and the weather was pretty decent. It was pretty busy once we actually hit the dragon, but let me tell you, this bike did amazing. This was very confidence-inspiring and very capable on roads like that. You can see the Pikes Peak heritage, the Stelvio Pass heritage, all the things that Ducati has done to make this bike handle the way it does in those twisty, curvy, up and down sections. This is truly an amazing machine. It really worked really well. I'll have a video specifically about that coming out. Did have a GoPro on me, and that'll be out soon. Keep an eye out for it. From there, we went down to Shreveport, and that was a long day from the mountains of North Carolina into Shreveport, and this bike did really well on the whole trip. Now, I was a little concerned when I got the exhaust done that I'd be facing a big reduction in fuel economy. That definitely didn't happen, averaging somewhere between 36 and 40 miles per gallon the entire trip. The thing I found that was most influential on the gas mileage on this bike, that I found basically to be consistent through my entire ownership of this, highway cruising of this bike, you do have a 5.7 gallon tank. Where this bike shines is kind of between 65 and 70, maybe 75 miles an hour. You're still going to average 38 miles per gallon or better on this bike through kind of normal flat and level riding. That's not an issue. When you exceed 75 miles an hour, and that's not indicated 75, that is true speed 75. As we know, this speedometer is about 5%, a little optimistic. But once you exceed 75 miles an hour, that's when the gas mileage really starts to plummet. Some of the Texas roads had pretty high speed limits, and when you're trying to keep up with those and exceed those ever so slightly, we noticed the gas mileage went down to almost 30 miles per gallon at a couple points, just with a higher RPM cruising. My thoughts is, with the RPMs on this bike, obviously the horsepower curve tends to overtake the torque curve at 52 RPM, that's where it always does. So once you start exceeding and get into that horsepower curve, that's when this bike is really starting to gobble up some fuel. So the idea is to kind of keep that as low as close to 5,000 or 5,200 RPM or below, and you'll still stay within the efficiency range of this bike. As I've said before, I think 6th gear is really too short for this bike. I really think it should be revving lower at highway cruising speeds. I think 6th gear needs to be, a good bit taller. I don't really want to change the final drive gearing because I like the way the rest of the bike handles on acceleration and overall riding, but I wish 6th gear would just lower those RPMs maybe by 1,000 RPMs or so, and I think this bike would be a whole lot more capable. From there, we went to Austin, Texas from Shreveport, which was a short ride. We went right out to the track from there and through the Ducati Island experience, which was a lot of fun. If you guys have never been or never seen the Ducati Island experience, there's a lot of things involved, and you get to ride right into the track. You get to carry all your stuff with you so you don't have to worry about what you're packing. It is super convenient, and the fan lap that was on Saturday morning obviously was a good time on this bike, getting to do a power wheelie down the front straight at 120 miles an hour. That was a wonderful experience and well worth the extra money for the Ducati Island ticket. I had a great time meeting a couple of you guys out there. Some of you came up and introduced yourselves and said you watched the videos, and it was awesome to meet you in person. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the videos and actually finding something useful about them. I do appreciate that, and like I said, anything that you want to see on the bike, feel free to leave in the comments. I'll do my best to bring it to you. Overall, we had a pretty good time in Austin. The racing was a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, the main race itself was kind of a nightmare with 8 bikes crashing out, 10 total crashes. I mean, it was just a mess of a race, but still was pretty fun to watch. The sprint race has added a lot of excitement to the MotoGP series that I think is a great thing for viewers. I'm glad we went a second year. I really did enjoy it. The trip back was pretty uneventful. We went to Jackson, Mississippi the first day from Austin, Texas, and then we rode from Jackson, Mississippi all the way back to Raleigh, North Carolina, about 800 miles, which is a long day. As you can see from the bugs that are on the front of the bike, this is after being cleaned multiple times, still what is remaining. The weather was overall pretty beautiful most of the time. On our trip down, we did hit rain a couple times, pretty hard into the night on Thursday as we were heading down after we left Tail of the Dragon. About lunchtime that day and onward, we were in some pretty deep rain. Luckily, the Revit gear I was wearing was all Gore-Tex. Really gave me no issues. I was dry the whole time. The bike did really well. There was no issues ever with this bike. It does everything it's supposed to do and has been pretty flawless on this trip. For luggage for the week-long trip, I found the bags on the Multistrada with some kind of detailed packing, pretty well adequate for the bike. You do have to pay attention to how you're packing things to make sure you can fit the most in them, but they do a pretty good job. They fit quite a bit in them. I found this Kriega 20-liter tail bag. That is a dry bag that I used last year and I again used this year. Found it very handy, fits great on the rear seat, and I'm really able to put pretty much all my clothing in that rolled up, and it holds it great, keeps it dry. It's an awesome extra piece of equipment, really stable. Really, the whole trip went pretty well with pretty minimal issues. The only consistent issue I had was with my Cardo Edge. And the problem is not the connection or ease of use. It did all those things really well. The one I got just was giving me some battery issues. Even after charging it all night long, within an hour of using it, it would give me a low battery warning. It would keep giving that warning over and over again. Never seemed to die. It didn't let me down at any point during this trip. It never actually died. But it would give me that low battery warning the whole time, and every time I turned it off, it said the battery was low after it really shouldn't be. I did my best to kind of keep it topped off in a charger, just thinking if it was low, maybe that would help. I don't know whether it did or not. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with the battery in this thing or why it's reading the battery the way it is. I'm assuming maybe a voltage issue, something like that inside. I'm not quite sure. Cardo is going to warranty exchange this thing out, so I'll be getting a new one just to see if I still have the same issues with the other one. This is the first time I've had these issues. Hopefully it's just a one-off thing. I've showed this before on this channel, but for my navigation, what I'm using is just my phone with Google Maps. I do download the offline maps. That's the important thing, especially if you're riding through areas you know don't have good cell coverage. Make sure you download the offline map material. That way you always have navigation. You're not relying on a cell network. But I have that on my RAM wireless charging X-Grip. I've used the RAM X-Grip for well over a decade at this point, probably 15 years since I started getting street motorcycles, and it's always been reliable for me. I know some people end up pulling the phone off with one hand and moving some of these little rubber feet, and then phones tend to fly out. But as long as you do the two-handed thing and take the phone out, don't remove those rubber feet, I've never had an issue with this platform. In this mount, the way it sits on the bike, with the wind protection the way it is, it gets plenty of airflow when moving, and after just a couple minutes of moving, this phone stays cool even on a warm day and really has no problems. The bike does have the Cigic navigation abilities where it does pair to the phone and give you a background navigation. At this point, the app on the phone has updated a lot and the bike has been updated a few times. I found this connection to be super reliable at this point. I'm no longer having the connection issues where you have to connect, reconnect, it won't reconnect, any of those things. It's not happening anymore. It is very reliable. So I'll give credit to Ducati and say that at least that system is now working as they've designed it to. And that's probably the biggest thing I can say about this system. The problem is I have Google Maps on my phone. To get the same mapping in the Cigic system on the background of the screen, it takes a couple extra steps. So I'm already doing more work for the same outcome, which is a little bit problematic. I can't put my phone in this box or else it'll overheat, so it's got to stay on the handlebars. So I'm seeing really no improvement to using the Cigic system. The navigation algorithm on the Cigic is a little weird. I don't like it all the time. The way it communicates things is not as well refined as Google Maps currently is. And overall control of the bike as far as turning heated seats on, looking at your mileage, doing media control, that sort of thing, from Bluetooth streaming, really aren't accessible through that navigation menu. You got to go out of it to do all that stuff. So if I have to do all that extra work, and it takes a lot more work to go into it, and I'm getting no benefit, why would anybody use this? That's my rant on Cigic. Again, it is working like it's supposed to now. If you have a Multistrada and it's been to the dealer lately and it's gotten the latest updates for the software on the bike itself, and your phone app has updated, the Ducati Connect and the Cigic apps have updated, you should have no problems connecting now. They seem to be working fine for me. So, like I said, I'm gonna have a couple very specific videos coming out about some of the different things we did while on our road trip. Unfortunately, I forgot my GoPro the day we were doing our fan lap around COTA. I thought that would have been cool to see, but at least I got some footage on Tail the Dragon, some other things going on. So I'll go ahead and make specific videos of those. Stay tuned, make sure you subscribe to the channel to see those. At Ducati Island, I did have this parked in the Ducati Corral inside the track, and I gotta say, this wrap still stood out greatly. It was the only bike I saw like this, only Multistrada I saw like this. A lot of Panigales and similar bikes that had very exotic wraps, a bunch of different unique wraps. This was the only Multistrada I saw that was wrapped anything like this. So I want to say again, I'm incredibly impressed with how this turned out and how this really transformed the look of the bike. Combined with the exhaust, just an exhaust that you can hear, unlike the factory Euro emissions compliant exhaust, really changes the character of this bike. It becomes incredibly playful, it gives it a personality, and that's what these Italian bikes, the European bikes, are really known for, is having kind of that personality. They're playful, they're fun, and this bike absolutely meets that. I'm going to go ahead and get this bike cleaned up now. We still do have our brake issue, where our brakes are now coming all the way back to the handlebars and then building with pressure. Did try a few other bikes out down there, did talk to some other people on Multistradas, tried their brake lever, and this was kind of a unique thing to my bike that I found. Some of them were a little spongier than I would like them to be, but at least they were consistent. They didn't have the building issue that this one did. I do have an appointment this weekend to go ahead and hopefully go to a dealer to get that looked at. Hopefully we'll get some sort of solution to that problem coming up. If there's anything you want to see about this Multistrada or about the Ducatis in general, let me know down in the comments below and I'll see what I can do about bringing that to you. For everybody that came up and introduced yourselves to me at the track, it's great to meet you guys. Great to hear that you're enjoying the content and that you're finding it useful. Again, it means a lot to me, and I'm going to keep trying to bring that level of content to you. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video, and we'll be back with more very soon.